Hi, everybody. My name is Shadley Gray. I am with Agency Management Institute. I'm assuming most of you are familiar with AMI, but just to give you a little bit of insight into who we are an organization dedicated to helping elevate small to mid-sized marketing companies through a lot of different resources and like today's webinar. I am thrilled to have Amanda Kreuser and Julie Hochheiser Ilkovich with us to talk about SEO. I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to them. If you guys want to just take a minute or two to talk a little bit about your background, your business, and then we'll get started with the presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shadley. Thank you, AMI, for having us here. We're going to get a little bit more into intros in a moment in the presentation, and perfect pronunciation of my name. That was very impressive. So thank you very much. So hi again. Thanks for having us. We're really thrilled to be here with you. I'm Julie Hochheiser Ilkovich, and you're also on with my partner, Amanda Pressner Kreuser. We are the co-founders of Masthead, which is a content marketing agency, and we are also a member of AMI's Synergy Group. So we're part of a peer group, and we love the work that we're doing with AMI. We work with a lot of great clients across major verticals like big tech, financial services, and consumer products. And while our focus these days is much more heavily on AI workflow strategy, just kind of the way the world's going, for most of our life as a company, our core offering was SEO strategy and content development. The success of our efforts and our clients' content programs depended a lot on how well things were indexing in search. And that's because nearly all top of funnel content is designed to draw in a very large number of people through Google and all kinds of visitors. And then hopefully, as you know, at least some of them will become qualified potential customers. Once they're in the site, marketers like us, like you, many of you, do their best to drive those people deeper into the funnel. So here at Masthead, we have had a transformation, content marketing, focus on SEO, to now we're doing a lot more work in the AI space, AI consulting, AI workflows. But just wanted to give you a little bit of background on us and why we kind of are here talking to you today. Really, we'll say this at the end too, but would love to connect with other agencies, talk to you about the work you're doing, the work we're doing, and kind of what we're talking about today. How can we can all align? It's our graphic that we've been using. I guess it's like content marketing or marketing is fine. So here at Masthead, we actually started kind of sending up our flares to our own clients a few years ago when we learned that AI overviews were being developed. And back then it was called Search Generative Experience. So I know not all of you work in the SEO space. So if you're not that familiar with the term AI overview, essentially that is what you're seeing now when you do a search on Google, when they're feeding the answer to your search to you. We'll talk much more about this later, right in Google. So you're on Google and you're seeing the answer there at the top. That's the AI overview. So it's not sending you off to your site, a client site that is all the information is there and they're keeping you in Google. At that time, so really 2 years ago, we didn't know exactly what the integrated AI experience might look like. So we knew this was coming. Google had warned us. We didn't know what it was going to look like, what it would be, but we knew that it had the potential to flip the entire practice of SEO and audience discovery on its head, which was a tremendous part of our business, was creating and optimizing content for SEO for our clients and working on other SEO projects for them. And at the very least, we knew that it was going to start reducing and cannibalizing the organic traffic coming in from search. And so, all that we've seen in the last 2 years, and especially since August 2024, we'll talk about that data a few times, is showing that it's definitely going in that direction. So, all the changes that have happened with search, with AI, with ChatGPT, it really is going in that direction, in that there's just a lot that's preventing organic search from getting eyeballs to your sites, to your client sites, wherever you're trying to use SEO to have success in the marketing space. So while the release of AIOs is slowly killing traditional SEO as we all knew it, so we call this, RIP, the entire practice of SEO is not dead. And in fact, it's far from it. We're going to talk about that today. So is SEO dead? No, but traditional SEO is definitely dying. So, how those things are changing, how it affects your business as an agency, how it affects your client's business, services that you can be offering to your clients to kind of right set in this world, that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So, as someone who runs or leads an agency, you might have sold SEO. I saw some of you have, some of you haven't. Um, and another important thing to take into consideration for all of us is we know that you might be using SEO. That's not the question we asked for your own business, right? So, to get people and eyeballs onto your own websites and products. But you've probably sold SEO as one of the most reliable results driven services in your mix. So, in your marketing mix, SEO up until again last year was a pretty reliable way to get traffic, to get eyeballs, to have a part of a healthy marketing strategy. Clients paid you to help them rank in Google. You use the latest SEO best practices, especially content optimization, which we'll talk about later on, to deliver some serious traffic wins. And for years, that model worked really, really well. It really did. We built our business around it, to be quite honest. And things changed that were completely out of our control and are continuing to change very rapidly. So when AI usage became kind of a thing in all of our lives and all the things that brought with it, that's when things really started to change, really starting in 2023. But that August 2024 is when Google actively changed their algorithm, which is why we use that date. So when people talk about why SEO and related agency services are changing, the conversation usually is focused on the tools. So which ones we need to adopt, how to get trained, how to stay one step ahead for our clients and of our clients and for our clients. And all of that's definitely important. But at Masthead, we feel the bigger shift in the wake of AI is actually happening on the audience side. And we want to emphasize that. And that has everything to do with the way that people are using LLMs like ChatGPT to search, discover, and make decisions in completely new ways. And also, even using traditional search engines like Google in completely new ways. Everything's really changed. So AI isn't just changing how agencies work; it's changing how audiences behave, and that's the thing that sometimes gets lost as we all try to future proof how we're going to work, what's the future of SEO, what's the future of content, what's the future of marketing, and what we all have to offer. So in today's session, we're going to look at both things, the changes we're seeing in audience behavior, and the new kinds of services we believe agencies will need to deliver in order to stay ahead of this big transition. And when we get to those services at the end, the tactical approaches, it's things that you should be using for yourself and things that you should be using for the clients, depending on the services that you provide. So, what are those major changes that we're seeing? We're going to talk about them in great depth in this presentation, but want to start by calling out some of the key ones because I think it's going to be really important to start this conversation. So, the key changes one, that search behavior is evolving. People aren't just Googling anymore. They're getting their information from a huge array of digital sources that include the media, social feeds, private groups, and just tons of other places where they're consuming content and having conversations, both public and private. Also, today, there are a lot more ways to search. So you can search through AI chat, social feeds, video platforms. We all hear about how TikTok is a search engine for so many people. So just like the way that people are searching is changing, and discovery is often starting in places that brands can't completely control and are getting less and less control, to be quite honest. On top of that, and all that, search engines are changing the rules. A lot of what we knew to be true about visibility is getting changed on as Google transforms its on-page real estate, which I mentioned before, and it's fighting for its share of attention. And even if you're not in the search space, you've definitely noticed that your Google experience has changed. So what gets served to you, what's on page, what's offered to click out, that's all just completely transformed. And Google wants more than anything to keep more eyeballs and in Google and keep you in the Google experience for as long as possible. And finally, clicks have gotten much, much harder to win. So if you've heard the term zero click search, you're probably using it. So the idea that you're searching and you're not necessarily having to click through to anything to get the information that you need. So even when you rank for a great term, fewer people are leaving the Google search environment to visit a site directly. So you can be, this is kind of a new phenomenon that we really are seeing in the past 2 years or year. You can be the winner of a search term. You can completely own a search term, but you're not going to hit your KPIs based on that. You're not going to get the traffic. You're not going to get essentially the revenue and any of your other goals because Google is keeping people in its environment and using your information to serve the audience.
Thanks, Julie. And really to add to that, even if you do ultimately get that person to come and buy after seeing an AIO, it's not going to be attributed to you. And for us as agency owners and leaders, it's that attribution that's so important. So when you step back and look at all of the things that Julie just talked about together, the old SEO model of publish on your site, rank in Google, and convert from there, it just doesn't hold up anymore. So that brings us to the larger truth of what we are seeing. In 2025, content is no longer a single destination journey. It's not one funnel or hub. It's a distributed experience that unfolds across platforms, some of which brands control and agencies try to control, and some that we really don't. As we mentioned, the model is simple for almost 20 years. So create a ton of really informative SEO friendly content, get people to your site, and convert them. Google was the catalyst in this whole situation, and the blog or the content hub was the destination. And it all worked really well. It's just not how content works in 2025. Discovery isn't following a straight line anymore. Today, the customer journey looks a lot more like a pinball machine than a classic funnel shape. It's unpredictable, it's nonlinear. People are zinging from thing to thing, probably with under 3 to 5 seconds worth of attention spent on any of it. And it's all really different for everybody. People bounce between those touch points, which could be AI search results, TikTok, someone sends you something, a Reddit thread, which is becoming more and more popular, private Slack chats, newsletters, LinkedIn posts, a million ways that we've all created content that probably our industry has helped to create. And all of this happens before anyone ever hits your client's websites. And that is if they ever get to those websites at all. So if content's not a straight line anymore, leading to that single destination, then what is it? At Masthead, we think of content as an ecosystem. It lives across multiple formats, channels, and screens, and each asset plays a slightly different role in how audiences discover and make sense of what a brand is and what they offer. As I said before, some people might start with a Substack or they stumble on a Reddit thread, but it really doesn't matter where they start that journey. What matters to people is that they're getting enough positive signals from enough places that they feel confident in the decision that they're trying to make. Because one thing really hasn't changed in this whole era of AI that I think sometimes gets lost, and it's that people aren't any less curious than they once were. In fact, I think they feel more empowered to ask questions because they have more sources to turn to. They are still trying to solve the problem of what is worth their time and energy and their money. The only core thing that's changed is that they're just not relying on Google alone to make those decisions anymore. Because the customer journey has become a lot more fragmented, at some point in this process, people just want certainty or even a summary. They want a recommendation that they can trust. And if they're not going to get it from their best friend or a family member, they're going to look to other sources. So AI search tools like ChatGPT and Claude and Google's AIOs are becoming those content aggregators, those trust aggregators. But the critical shift that we are seeing happening is that AI answers aren't just pulling from your blog anymore or your site anymore the way it was under Google. No matter what search engine optimization efforts that you make, that is just not going to be where the information is coming from. Where AIOs and all AI LLMs are pulling from is it's pulling from places that are being said or content that's being said around your brand in those places where you and your clients really can't fully control the narrative. As you see from this perplexity search that I pulled on the screen and screenshotted, what is the best company for auto insurance? You're not, if you can see this tiny writing, you're not getting brand blogs as an answer. You're not getting nationwide. You're getting things like editorial reviews from Forbes, NBC, and NerdWallet. You're seeing those Reddit threads pulling in, and you're getting aggregated ratings by third-party review platforms. Um, Recently, a study came out, July 2025, from the Pew Research Center, and it said that the most frequently cited sources by both Google AI summaries and from standard search are Wikipedia, YouTube, and Reddit. Three places that we definitely do not, completely control that narrative, or maybe even not 20% controlling it. Because that's what AI tools are really valuing now. They want those trusted, independent, high authority content sites not what you write about yourself, and they want what others write about you, which is a little more challenging for agency leaders now, and certainly for brands, but it's something that we still can work with. There is another reason that brands need to think beyond their own sites and their own content to the power of that larger content ecosystem that I just mentioned. And I always love a good example. So let's take a closer look at a brand that was riding the SEO wave for many years until they got hit pretty hard. I guarantee everyone on this call knows HubSpot. They invented the term inbound marketing, which is creating a lot of informative content, optimizing that content pretty consistently, and just letting that traffic roll in year after year. And for many years, that approach worked beautifully. That blog was an unstoppable magnet for traffic, pulling in 20 million plus monthly visitors at its peak. But starting in early 2023, when things changed for all of us, things changed very dramatically for HubSpot. So on this slide you have in front of you, you'll see the monthly visits to HubSpot's site from the early 2010s to now, and that massive fall off on the end. That is what we refer to as the traffic cliff. When AIOs and Google's zero-click search features kind of combined and started surfacing answers without sending people to the original source, which in this case was HubSpot, that traffic nosedive did not happen because HubSpot's content suddenly started to be bad or because they did something wrong. It's because the platform that delivered their audiences, which was mostly Google, completely changed the rules on them. They did not check in with them before they made those changes. Part of what changed was AI overviews built into Google, as we know, but a lot of it also had to do with that algorithm that Google reset around early 2023. So you've probably, as agency leaders, have heard of this term EAT, which is experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. Google around that time really started focusing on sites and delivering sites to searchers that had high EAT. And so they began to penalize other sites like HubSpot, even though they were really strong for a long time, principally because they were trying to go too far outside of what they actually do to create content that was just for the purposes of getting traffic. And at the same time, AIOs started rolling out that answered those top of funnel questions directly on the search page, the same kinds of questions that HubSpot really was known for answering, the how-to questions, the super informative questions. So what we were seeing as this double hit. So Google's no longer prioritizing HubSpot content, and users no longer need to click through to them to actually get their answers when they do get served up in a top spot. So that all netted out in this 80% plunge in traffic in just 2 years. I'm sure there were heart attacks happening within the company at that time. Again, not because they did anything wrong, but because the platforms itself fundamentally changed. So after seeing that HubSpot slide, that really might cement the question that we asked kind of at the beginning, is SEO totally over? Why are we doing it? How are we selling it? Should it even be sold anymore? And the answer is no, not yet. We're still not in a total, SEO is dead state of mind, which is where we started the presentation, but it is evolving really, really quickly, which is why we're here. Brands that are creating original, high quality content that's clearly connected to their core expertise or product, they are seeing results. So case in point, Cleveland Clinic, you've all heard of them. They've been at Content Marketing World many years. If you've been to that, they have very well researched, well cited medical content that's still to this day has extremely high organic traffic in the hundreds of millions of page views. But we're even seeing with that site, with clevelandclinic.org, that for a time, as these things were changing for HubSpot, Cleveland Clinic also experienced that dip in traffic before they kind of figured out how to rein it in. And across a lot of other sites, your competitors, maybe some of, your clients and their competitors, organic traffic is not growing. And there are some reasons for that. Just about 50% of all search traffic around 5 years ago led to an organic click for typically a brand or a reputable website. And that number today has fallen to 36%, and it's still on decline. So clicks are there, they're just getting to be fewer, and they're harder to earn, and they're more competitive than ever. So let's dig a little bit deeper into what's actually happening when people use a traditional search engine like Google. And I want to say that Google search, you may have heard this, is not itself on the decline. There's been a lot of people who are like, ChatGPT is going to take over for Google. But what's really interesting is that 5 trillion searches were done last year, which was a record for Google. As I said before, people are really curious, and I think they feel really empowered now to search in a number of different ways. So that was a record for Google. And so even though we're seeing a decline in the total number of clicks that happen to, brand websites, there's still a massive amount of volume out there. So let's look at what happens after someone clicks enter on their search and what we're seeing. So AIOs are often answering the question right on the page, so there's no need for people to click. And only about 1% of people click on the little links that the AI overviews actually provide. Some users are staying within the Google ecosystem, so the other things that we don't typically associate with Google, but those maps, Google News, YouTube. And then some people just don't like the result they're getting, so they are rephrasing their question and re-entering it, so that doesn't count as a click through. Then there are some people who do still go to ads. It's pretty small, it's about 1% or less. And then that fraction of users I talked about before, that 1/3 or 36%, who do make it to an organic result on a website that's not a part of the Google environment. Even when your site ranks, as Julie was saying before, you could have that number one result. Another reason you might not see the click is that your result, where you're in that top spot, might be below the fold on your desktop, and it's almost certainly below the fold on mobile. Under branded queries, something where you ask a question but you don't have a brand name also in there are also less likely to lead to brand websites. They usually go to a third party or media site because Google is also, just traditional Google, is serving up those more neutral sources when providing an answer. And on that note, media outlets are, media and PR is having a resurgence. If anyone on this call is in PR, you probably know this. It's kind of like a renaissance because for Google searches, those media outlets are often outranking brands for informational searches, and media support for a brand and media writing about a brand is so inherently important to what AI overviews serve up that we're starting to see more and more reliance on the media outlets that are left to hopefully write about our clients' brands, and hopefully those get served up as a search result and support our AI search needs and desires. And then, as I said before, Google's algorithm is favoring those sites with high EEAT, which makes it harder for you as a brand to win without a tight alignment with your actual domain expertise. So a ton of older content you might have that's a little more general, kind of in your category, but not directly related to your product. So SEO still matters, but it's no longer the most reliable channel for top of funnel discovery. And that leads to yet another question. If organic search is not the front door to a brand anymore, to your clients, what is? Well, that is the question all of us in agency life are trying to figure out. It's not with search traffic slowing down, it's not just about keywords and clicks. What we are moving to is a place of trying to win influence. We want to win trust, not necessarily just search clicks. We want to show up wherever our audiences are already paying attention and asking questions. So to see what that shift looked like in practice, let's go back to the company that popularized inbound content marketing. Let's talk about HubSpot again and see what happened to them once their search traffic went down. You would probably think after seeing this, orange line, this traffic cliff, that their revenue as a company would also follow a similar trajectory and go down. But the blue line tells a really different story. Despite that 80% plunge in traffic, HubSpot's revenue that year and over the following year actually increased. They earned $714 million in Q1 of this year, which was a 16% jump over the same period in 2024. So why is that happening? It is because HubSpot as a company didn't just rely on organic search to build their pipeline. Instead, about a year or two ago, right around that time that search was changing, they started focusing on other parts of their ecosystem as a brand. They grew their community of loyal customers, so they didn't just look to new customers, but did more to service the customers they already had. They did smart retargeting through paid efforts. They leaned into podcast newsletters and live events, so written article content on their blog. And then they switched to human first, story led content that was very closely tied to their brand. So let's take a deeper look. Here's the formula that they followed. they started creating more bottom of funnel content, mid to bottom, those things that we kind of don't think of as content marketing, but are still actually content marketing because they are designed for people who are closer to making a decision. HubSpot ditched the vanity traffic stuff like famous quotes, and they focused on content tied to real buyer intent. So, best CRM for small businesses in their case. Once you get people out of that pinball machine, that like what was the top of the funnel before, and into your site, people are so much more informed thanks to AI, thanks to those Reddit threads. They're like, they know about your brand now, they know about your client. Now, what they're looking to do when they eventually land there is they want to be guided into making a sale. And it's really our job and responsibility to make sure they have the content they need, kind of get past all those objections, past comparing with other customers. They want to feel great about making a decision. And the longer kind of lead time for a sale for a thing like HubSpot, like changing your CRM, kind of the more content that you need. Brands that are a little bit more consumer based, that funnel, that what remains of the funnel, that bottom of funnel stuff, it's a little bit shorter, but still most of the original contact is happening outside the site. So HubSpot is focused now on branded search, and that is the new success metric all of us should be watching for our clients. So people are following or discovering HubSpot through podcasts and social posts, communities, things like that. And then they are searching for HubSpot pricing or HubSpot email tools. So that kind of branded search signals trust already, and it leads straight to the product or pricing pages, not to the blog where it might take longer, if ever, to get somebody to make a purchase. We should all be looking at direct traffic. Those are people who may just also be typing in the homepage of our site with no referring domain. That was sort of like a black box before, and it still kind of is, like, what is direct traffic? But today, what that really means is like someone has heard about your client outside of all the stuff that you control, and eventually they are finding their way to your client's website with typing in the name of the client right into their browser. So HubSpot also built a traffic ecosystem. Community right now, that is like probably the word of the year for 2025 and 2026, from micro influencers to thought leader posts on LinkedIn and Reddit. HubSpot shows up everywhere. Their buyers are gathering intel, and they're not just relying on Google. And that is probably why I noticed last year on LinkedIn that HubSpot's head of SEO became their head of community, because they knew that stoking the fires of their community were going to help revenue grow within their company. I tried to get more information on what she actually does with her job, but she said there was not a lot she can share, so I'll keep working on it. HubSpot's own channels are doing the heavy lifting. The brand's emails, their newsletters, they have that live inbound conference, they have that great online academy. All of these content outlets are keeping the brand top of mind, are supporting customers as they're running into challenges, and they're driving repeat visits to high value content and templates and feature pages. So that was our discussion of AI's impact on audience discovery, but we wanted to also share how is AI affecting content creation itself. So let's take a look at what's happening now. The information here is pulled from a lot of interviews with content marketing leaders that we do regularly and our own data at Masthead. So AI is still stopping short of the first draft. I literally just before this meeting posted something on LinkedIn that was released from OpenAI about how people are using ChatGPT to help them with their work. And it's not write this first draft for me. It's very often supporting a content creator, whether it be an agency, a client, any one of us, with a first draft they've already created. So we're really seeing that a lot of companies are concerned about using AI to completely originate the content. And in more cases, we're seeing that somebody else, typically the agency or they internally, are creating that content, and they're using AI to support their creative process, their fact-checking process, their research process, but not necessarily content creation in full. Content formats are evolving. So in an AI first world, brands are restructuring older content to answer the kinds of very personalized long form queries that those LLMs like Gemini and ChatGPT are favoring. So that means looking at each section of content you already have, figuring out how it should be restructured to answer all of those unspoken questions users have, and making sure that content is packed with proprietary data that can't be found anywhere else. At Masthead, we actually on our own site pages recently started putting FAQs at the bottom of pages because we know that this is how LLMs are structuring what they're serving back. They're looking for that question, looking for that answer, and then scanning the rest of the page to make sure you are actually an expert in this area. We're also seeing, and I think this is really important for agencies, that thought leadership is rising in value. The AI voice now is so obvious. It's literally all I see on my LinkedIn is people calling out other people for using AI. It's super important now that our leaders at companies have a real human voice backing them. And this is an area of opportunity I'm seeing for agencies to provide really top tier people who can write this. It's not to say AI shouldn't be involved in that process either. We are piloting something at Masthead where we are able to set up editorial calendars almost completely automated from the due dates, from some of just the structure of looking at pitches through AI. But the actual writing, particularly for thought leadership, will always come from a person. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Julie to tell you a little bit more about tactical approaches.
Thank you so much. Before I move on to the tactical approaches, I know we've thrown a lot of information about, at you all. Does anyone want to ask a question? I didn't see any questions in the chat. I don't know if there are any questions in Q&A, but just if anyone wants to raise their hand, not necessary, but this would be a good time to ask any questions about all the information before we throw more at you.
I have a quick question. This is Megan Braverman with Burbay. Thank you so much for the presentation. I've really enjoyed it and it's touching on all the key points here. But I'm just curious in terms of, we've talked a lot about content, and obviously content is still very much a big player in all of this, despite the shift. One of the things that I'm just curious, because it's our SEO agency does this, and it always makes me feel like, oh goodness, this makes me uncomfortable. But when we go to like build out pages, right? When we're going to build out some of our content, we have original content on our website, but then we're like, okay, we want to take this, throw it in a black box, shake it up and make it something different, but that works for SEO, right? They're using AI to rewrite those pages. That's the uncomfortable part, right? Because for obvious reasons about like branding and key messaging, I don't think it does the best job, but I'm really concerned we're going to get dinged for doing that, right? Using AI to rewrite content. So just curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I can take this one, Julie.
Yeah.
So there is not, at least not publicly, any guidance that says if you use AI in some form that you will get dinged by Google. Google's number one concern, first and foremost, is making sure that the question has been answered properly, or you are servicing, whoever's reading that page in a way that if they send traffic to you, you're effectively answering that inquiry. So I don't think you should be afraid of like using AI itself, but you touch upon that point of like, if somebody gets there, are they going to bounce out of that page because they don't like that it's so obvious that AI was creating it? So that's what you have
Right.
to watch for, is like, what is the user experience in this case? I think if you have a phenomenally written piece of AI content, Google will probably still serve it up. And if people are like, yeah, I love this, I'm going to click on to the next page, I think you're going to be okay. Because
Okay.
I've heard a million times, like, it's not about the AI creation, it's about the user.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Sure
I would
thing.
just add to that. So I'm actually right now at Content Marketing World in San Diego. And the big conversation here kind of has been exactly that, Megan. Like it's about creating content using AI, and like pretty much what people are saying is it does depend on the user's expectation and like, so for example, there was a whole conversation about using avatars in videos and using AI videos, and it was like people were saying, if I'm watching like a makeup tutorial where I'm just looking at the how to and I just want to actually see an action, like I don't care if that's created by AI, but I'm really wanting to watch like an interesting editorial story, then I want it to be much more authentic and not created by AI. So I think it's really just like whatever the purpose of that content is. I think that's where to examine if AI is appropriate to be used or not. And like almost, I mean, I'd love to know more about this content. We can talk about it separately, but like, what's the point of that content, right? Because it's like, if the point is really to get people to engage, it's not going to perform if it's just generic AI content. And it's almost like, why are we create?
Right.
Why are we creating it? Is it important? Not that it's going to hurt you, like Amanda said, but like, is it important?
Makes sense. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Any other questions about the first part? Okay. Well, we should have time for some more questions at the end. I'm just glancing into chat. Amanda, if you want to look in chat
Yeah,
as
I'm checking out chat. I see a question now that I'll respond to.
perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so anytime we give a presentation, we always want you to have like your key takeaways, practical approaches to it. This is a lot of information, and this world is kind of very like, what should we do with all this information? So the second part of this conversation, or this last part of this presentation, is about tactical approaches. So essentially, this is the recommendation for like, now in the new world of SEO, like what should we be focusing on in terms of our marketing? And all of this would apply for sure to your own agencies and also to your clients, depending on the work that you're doing for them again. So these are kind of, this is the marketing mix we would recommend. Amanda showed earlier like the ecosystem of, how we're looking at marketing. And I'm sure our team is very tired of this, but I always talk about it as kind of like a circle, a pizza, a pie, where before like SEO was a much larger slice of your marketing mix that you could control, you could put the efforts into, and kind of, you couldn't fully control it, but you had an idea of kind of how to get your audience in, how to get people to click, how to people to convert, send them through the funnel. And now, really, like every piece of this pie is kind of equal because you need to be pulling all the levers because we don't really know what's working, what's not, how it's changing. It's changing all the time. So, kind of each of these is equally important in terms of, what your next steps are. We'll talk about some of them that are a little easier than others to implement. So one recommendation to go back and just work on strategy. I think that has been a really hard thing with all of these changes, and we all know how work actually goes and what actually happens at our agencies and our lives. We don't have a lot of time or often funds to take a step back and do the strategy. But really, I mean, the reality is that a strategy that you're working on, especially if it was something that was like created in any way or resembles a strategy that we were doing in August 2024, again, that date, or, even the beginning of this year, it's not going to work. And so taking the time to go back and rethink about your marketing strategies for your own agencies, for your clients, for any partners is really important. And so here's just some of the, strategies that we are looking at. Really vital, and we talk about EEAT, we talk about in the age of AI, being authentic is so important because people really can see that authenticity, and when they're looking for certain types of content or connections, that authenticity is so important. So number one, a very strong brand voice and tone strategy, extremely strong, really knowing what that voice and tone is to create for your own team, but also to train AI, right? So you're going to want to train AI, and you need to be training it authentic voice and tone. So that would be kind of where I would start, but just some of these other strategies, re-examining your customer journey and your channel mapping, re-examining your content marketing strategy, your site, your social, your email, making sure you have kind of like a thought leadership strategy because it's so important. These are all things that you're going to want to take a step back. And we know we run an agency. This is so hard. It's hard to take the time. And I think this is one of the biggest struggles in this era that's happening where things are changing so quickly is we don't really have the time to take the step back and figure out our plans. And so what's happening is a lot of work that is not useful, not necessary, not working is kind of happening because it's always happened. So, taking time for strategy for sure, or at least planning for that for 2026. Absolutely, super vital. Looking at your websites, looking at your agency website, if you work on websites for clients, one really interesting transition that's happened in SEO is the health of the website is influencing search. So that means if your website's slow, if you run ads on your website and those are slow, if you just don't have a great customer journey and customers are bouncing and people aren't consuming content on your website, like that is all influencing, and that's fairly new. And that actually dinged a lot of our own clients where they had amazing content, but their sites were slow. And this even started before this whole algorithmic change and the AI of it all. So taking a second to examine, and this is not necessarily something everyone thinks of as part of your marketing mix, and it might not be something you personally have control over, knowing it's important to re-examine website speed, site architecture, where are the landing pages, all the stuff that's not necessarily like the SEO content, and not even maybe SEO pages is also important. It influences how this is all happening, and like what your customer journey is, and what the goal for conversion is. So content is still so important. And I think what's really important, I'm just gonna take a sip of water, um, really important to address, and Amanda talked about this earlier. I think if you had talked to us at Masthead, where the heart of our business was content marketing 8 months ago, we were nervous about content creation, AI taking over content creation. So far, that has been the thing that AI has proven to be the worst at, honestly. It's not great. It's not quicker in terms of creating actual good content that performs. It's good for some things, some marketing emails, and it's amazing for efficiencies. So we have reshifted our focuses in terms of what are we using AI for, in terms of, Amanda said, creating editorial calendars, different efficiencies, different ways to make our jobs easier, different ways to do things better. Content creation is, and I guess in the terms of content creation, like editing a podcast, editing a video, yes, super, super helpful. In terms of writing content, not necessarily really helping. So when you think of the AI of it all, this is kind of the most place when we use the term human in the loop, that humans need to be in the loop. But all types of content are still so important to your strategy. And it's more important to create really good, authentic content, we'll talk a little bit about this in the optimization section, but like I said, with a unique voice and tone, with original data, with voices from people within your organization or clients' organizations. All content creation is still very important, and it's an important part of the media mix. So here's all the different things. Ebooks are becoming more important. Thought leadership, like we said many times, becoming more important, because those are not like the things that are written by the robots. Those are things that are really, when they're written by humans, they're extremely useful and appreciated by audiences. So paid media and performance marketing, and many of you here maybe have paid media agencies, and this is what you do. Paid media is becoming such an important piece of the concept of SEO, because essentially, like, you really do have to replace the traffic that you've lost from organic through paid. And it's just the reality. So, like I said, I'm at Content Marketing World this week. I'm actually, if anyone's here, by the way, reach out to me. But they, the I'm presenting about paid media, and my thesis statement is like, you don't really have a content strategy without a paid strategy. Whereas before, you could have one with just an organic search strategy, because you're not going to get that traffic through organic search. That's a huge thing that these algorithmic changes have taken away. So part of the marketing mix, like you may have had a paid strategy just to like support your clients, support their website, support their products, but having paid funds and a strategy to support content and kind of like the assets that make a brand interesting, relatable, have people connect with it between purchases, there needs to be a paid strategy behind that. So that is absolutely kind of, for those of us in the content marketing space, it's been a newer concept. And we really didn't work on paid before 2 years ago. We didn't even have paid strategies for our clients. So really, really important. And it's also really great for data to, you gather data from paid, of course, like what people are clicking on from search, but it's really, really great from an SEO perspective in terms of getting data to then create content that searchers are interested in. Content optimization. Content optimization, and if you're not doing it, I'd say it's maybe the first thing that you could dive into in terms of kind of rethinking your search and SEO strategy. So instead of creating new content and spending all the time and energy and money on that, it is optimizing your existing content to kind of succeed in the new world. So taking your content, re-examining it. Some of the things we recommend for optimization is integrating more of this EEAT content into your articles and into your landing pages and different places where you want people to go. And that's probably going to mean expanding the content, making it longer. That's helpful. But what does that mean? It's like more original data, more interviews, more voices from your team, more thought leadership. That is how you can kind of update your content. And a lot of what we're doing is updating our clients' content, maybe, 50%, putting in new content to kind of make it richer, make it have a better voice and tone, make it have more of this authentic information, and that's helping with search. Brand building and community management. When we're looking at, this again, marketing mix for SEO, there are certain things that maybe you didn't think of before as part of this. And a couple of these things you might work with, like you might not do this stuff. You might work with partner agencies. You might, for your clients, you might work with other agencies for yourself. Really important that all these pieces are talking. So we'll talk about PR in a moment, but content, brand building, community management, social, PR, they're all part of this greater strategy. They have to talk to each other. They cannot be separate in this new world of like what's happening with algorithmic changes and AI search. So focusing on your brand building, having a strategy, having strategic community participation, which is a really interesting thing that a lot of brands are doing, getting into Reddit and Quora and having, and there's definitely a science to it in terms of not being like too invasive as a brand or anything like that, and getting kind of accepted by the communities, but having a strategy around it, really important. Social media is all part of this as well, reporting on all of it. So gathering data all the time, brand reputation management also. We've said this a few times, but one, issue is that your kind of reputation is relying on so many more sources now. And if you do a search in ChatGPT, you see all the information that's pulled in to create this like thesis statement about your brand. And so making sure you're focusing in all of those places, PR, social, to kind of create that narrative is more important than ever. And again, making sure that you have a very strong voice and tone document. Your brand values are really strong. Everything is kind of aligned. So you're getting the same messaging out across anywhere that your brand or your client's brand is. I mean, this is also just to say influencers, micro influencers. We love micro influencer campaigns, user generated. All of that is kind of part of this bigger mix. Email strategy and audience segmentation. Truly, Amanda and I could give a whole other presentation on email. So a lot of you probably do email marketing. It has been its own beast also. When you think about SEO and all the traffic people have lost, there's also been this movement by the email servers, the Gmails of the world, to get people emails that they want into their inbox. So almost like SEO for emails. And so that has been a real struggle. And I'm sure a lot of you are seeing it. Your email number is going down, your email conversion's going down at Masthead. And we'd love to talk to anyone about this. We had a real issue. We have a really, really robust email list. It's very helpful for sales and marketing for us. We do a lot of sales and marketing, and we were losing a lot of traffic. We were losing a lot of opens and clicks and everything. And so we essentially had to do a rebuilding campaign to show Gmail and the other email servers that people want to engage with our content. And it was a very painful process, and we had to send out a lot less emails, which, as you know, is not what you want to do. So taking the time to think about this strategy is also tied. It's also overall your reputation, how many people are clicking through to your websites, all of those things kind of tie into this bigger world algorithm that your brand is engaging in. So having a strategic email roadmap, thinking about audience segmentation, thinking about content in emails. So not just sending sales emails. What is that engagement between purchases with your audience? Like all of that is something that you're going to want to think about when you're looking at your let's just say at this point, because we're already so far in the year, your 2026 planning. All of these things that I'm talking about are elements for the strategy that you're going to want to think about. PR and earned media, talked about the importance of PR. Again, Amanda said, like, it's becoming more and more important. Having, maybe you don't do PR. Maybe you are a PR agency, which is an interesting time to be a PR agency. Maybe you don't do PR, but you work with a PR agency, or your clients do. Actually, right now, today, one of our clients, we're doing a big agency day. We're meeting with all the vendors because it's all just like so tied together at this point. we cannot afford to work separately. So having a PR strategy, having a strategy for thought leadership placement. So creating thought leadership more and more important. And where is it going to go? Most important, how are people going to see it? Whether it's on LinkedIn, if it's distributed, if you get media placements for it. Having a media kit with a very strong, information about the company, who you are, what you do, what you stand for, all very important. And it seems like we've gotten far away from SEO at this point in the conversation. But the crazy thing is in the new world, these are all kind of tactics that manage how we're appearing in search and SEO. And then, just for us as agency leaders, going on speaking engagements, putting out your own, thought leadership on LinkedIn, and just being out there is more important than ever. Having webinars, speaking at these webinars, really, really vital. And this is our last slide. Data is everything in this world. Data is everything, and frequent data is even more. So really, where you might have done reporting monthly before, so important, at least weekly, if not daily, to be looking at how things are performing, how things are working, and for sure going deeper into monthly and quarterly reporting. But we are able to learn so much more in this new world. And we also need to learn and we need to pivot. So one thing we didn't get to talk about in this presentation that we talk about a lot is when we talk about this whole strategy and what's happening in the world is resetting KPIs. So your old KPIs do not exist anymore, honestly, the ones you had set for search and SEO. And just because the world is changing and everything is so different. So rethinking about what your KPIs are and then keeping an eye on them, and this isn't easy to do always when you're working with clients, understanding, and a lot of our clients understand, and some of them are learning, understanding what our goals are, and understanding that they may shift and they may have to shift based on kind of what's happening in the world, and being willing to pivot. So important. So doing reporting, sharing it internally, externally, and changing the direction are all kind of things that make sure you could start that now. You can, if you haven't been doing any of this, just starting to look at like, what are some of the trends you're seeing? And those are going to be, you're going to see changes for sure. No one hasn't seen changes. And those changes are all going to tie into like what your next steps and your strategic planning is. So I know that there have been convos in the chat. Does anyone have a question? We have a couple more minutes, just like 3 more minutes. Does anyone have a question that they want to ask live? I know people are asking for the presentation, and I think AMI will share it. We'll make sure that the team at AMI gets it so you can look at it. And like I said at the beginning, Amanda and I, here are our emails. We would love to connect on LinkedIn. We would love to chat through things. We're doing a lot of AI consulting efficiencies, things like that, to help our clients, other agencies, learn how to just kind of, again, not replace content, but like make things better, faster, stronger using AI. And we'd love to talk about that as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. That was a ton of content. I think it was helpful. I hope it was helpful. I certainly learned a lot. So I think we're gonna see if anyone has any last minute questions, and if not, we're gonna set you free into the rest of your day. This presentation will be up on the AMI website in about a week after we get it edited and cleaned up just a little bit, and that will include a download for the slides that I will be getting from the team. You can also, I have dropped my email address in the chat. If anyone wants to reach out to me in the next week, I will be sure to make sure you get the information you're looking for.
And please do find us on LinkedIn. We love connecting with other agency leaders and owners and everybody.
Yeah, thank you guys so
Thank
much
you.
for your time. It's
Thank
really
you, everyone. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much, and everyone have a great day.
Have a good day.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.